Hello and welcome back to Mads World. I'm your host Mads and I hope you have been enjoying the show so far. If you do like the show, please remember to subscribe, rate and review the podcast on your favourite listening platform and follow me on Instagram. It's madsworld.mp3. This week I'm joined by Sharon Gaffka, who starred in the latest season of Love Island in 2021. Before her journey in the villa, Sharon was a civil servant for the Department of Transport in the UK, as well as a former beauty queen. She was also Miss International UK in 2018. Sharon is passionate about female empowerment, and there were times in the villa when other islanders were intimidated by her career ambitions. She also had a discussion about her sexuality and her experiences dating as a mixed-race woman in the UK, which ITV chose not to air. Up next, you'll hear my chat with Sharon all about her time on Love Island, as well as her perspectives on modern expectations on women, sexuality and the stigma of bisexuality, and dating as a mixed-race woman in the UK. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I've just smashed a triple shot coffee. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I love that you had a coffee before this and I've just been eating cheese. So,
oh my God. Have you heard about cheese dreams before? If you eat cheese before bed, you have funky dreams, apparently.
I've heard of that, but I eat cheese with pretty much every meal and I've never had that. So maybe I'm like immune to it. You know when people are like immune to caffeine from coffee?
Yeah, your tolerance is like way high. Oh my God. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And I think everyone else listening is going to be absolutely buzzing to hear about everything that you have to share with us. So I thought we could start off with some speed date questions and then get into more of a discussion later on about some more interesting topics. So where were you when you first found out you were going on Love Island and what was your reaction?
I actually think I was walking my dog when I found out I was going on Love Island. Yeah, so I was stood in like the middle of a street or a field or something really random. I was trying to be really composed because I think like there were other dog walkers around me, so I didn't want to be like just like screaming in the middle of the field. And my dog's really excitable as well, so if I start being like that, she'll be insane as well. So yeah, I remember trying to play it off as like really cool, being like, yes, that's fine, like whatever. But I think inside my head I was like, oh crap, like
oh my God,
it's actually happening. I was like, oh, because you know the chances of ever ending up in the villa is so slim. Yeah, you never, like, I genuinely never thought that I would even get on it. So to have that phone call, I was a bit like, oh God, what did I do?
God, it's wild. And how far out was it? How much time did you get like notice?
I think I had like 4 weeks, maybe.
Okay. So you've got enough time to sort of prepare yourself, pack all your outfits and everything.
Yeah, so it was like 4 weeks notice, but it was more like you had, 3-week countdown. We had to do all the press days, all the photo shoots and stuff like that. So, it sounded like you had a lot of time, but realistically, there was like zero time.
Oh my God. Yeah, and I'm sure it flew by as well. So what surprised you most about your time in the villa?
I think the thing that surprised me the most is that, I got on with everyone. You assume that everybody that's going into something like Love Island is very strong in terms of personality, very big personalities.
Yep.
And when you're in each other's face 24/7, you assume there will be clashes. Whereas, when I was there wasn't really much of that going on. You'd always have the occasional tiff here and there about food and all that stuff, but it wasn't like anything massive. So yeah, that really, really surprised me.
When you say food, what do you mean about food? Like who's ate whose food and stuff?
Basically, can the boys just stop eating everything? So like all of the snacks and stuff. But you know what boys are like, right?
Yeah.
They see something in the cupboard and it can't just sit there. So yeah. So I think it was one of those things that they kept eating all the cookies before we could, but it wasn't anything major.
It sounds like sharing, like being in a house share, but to the extreme, like someone eating your food out of the fridge and everyone just kicks off.
It literally is like being in a very extreme house share and like you're in the same bedroom and stuff. So yeah, it's basically like that.
Oh, fun. And what did you learn about yourself whilst on Love Island?
I think one thing that I learned a lot about myself is that, I'm happy as I am and I don't need. So obviously my time in the villa, I never really had that really strong romantic connection with people, but I learned for myself that I don't need to rely on somebody else for validation.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly happy as I am, and that there will eventually be somebody that wants somebody who's like me. So I think it reinstated that part of myself that I shouldn't have anyone's validation.
And that is such a cool lesson to learn as well, especially out of a show like Love Island, which is kind of designed to find the one and everything. I think leaving and being more confident in yourself is such a cool feeling to leave with.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my biggest fears about going in was coming out feeling worse about myself than, that's a lot of people's fears, especially as a young woman. But that didn't happen. And if anything, I left feeling better about myself. Amazing. So, I think I was really lucky in that sense.
Yeah. And you've been smashing it since. I mean, you've been, I've been watching your Instagram stories and absolutely loving them. I've seen you've been catching up with all of the other islanders who have left the villa. So this is a spicy question for you. Is there anyone in the villa now or who has left since that you have your eye on for the wrap party?
Oh no. I get asked questions like this all of the time. Yeah, I think, the ones that I was in the villa with are very much like family now. So I think pretty much the door is kind of closed on that. Obviously, I've never met any of the Casa Amor boys. So, we'll have to wait and see. I'm not closing the door completely, but so far it's just all friendly.
And I see everyone on Instagram keeps asking if you and Aaron are an item, and you're like, we're just friends. So can you clear it up now for everyone? Are you and Aaron an item?
I honestly, both of us are so frustrated about having this question asked to us because we are just such good friends. But Aaron and I are not an item. I'm really sorry to everyone that really wants it to happen, but it won't.
Oh, there you go, everyone listening. You heard it here first. Well, you heard it here second because you've said it on your Instagram. So who are you still close with since having left the villa? Because obviously it must be such a whirlwind experience being in there, and you probably can't wait to see all of the OGs that you started with to leave. But who have you been spending the most time with since you've left?
I think since I've left, I would probably say Chugs and Brad are probably the two people that I'm closest to in terms of like speaking frequently and having spent the most time with since leaving. I would say those two. I am pretty much close to Aaron and Hugo as well. Like we all went out for drinks and food, but I'd probably say Brad and Chugs.
Oh, nice. And do you live in London? Is it easier with all the islanders that live in London to catch up and stuff?
I don't live in London. I used to until recently, but I live very close in terms of like travel. So I think it's like 35 minutes.
Oh, too easy.
Into central London. Yeah. So, I mean, Brad, bless him, has to do like a massive trek.
Yeah, it's massive. He's in Newcastle, isn't he?
Yeah. And because he's such a small town boy, watching, he was in St. Pancras station and he was like, I'm outside M&S, but I don't think he realised how big the station was. And there's 3 M&S's. So I was, and this station is huge. So people were watching me running around this station looking for Brad. And like the silly van was stood at the other end, like the complete other end of the station. So we try to make the most of it when everyone is in London together.
Oh, that's really cute. It's like Brad's big day out. It comes to the big city, like country boy.
It is like that. I think Chugs and I said that we're going to make a list of everything Brad has never done. And we're going to do it all with him. So like he told us he'd never been to Harrods, and like we took him in there. I got a photo of him stood outside and he looked really
that is so precious.
Brad's tourism day in London. And you could tell he's never been in London before because of how he stands on the tube. I was like, Brad, you need to stand on the other side of the escalator, otherwise you're going to really upset people.
Someone's going to push him down the escalator.
Yeah, literally. So
like an angry commuter.
Oh yeah, literally. He was like, and then he was like, what do you mean? And then like I moved him, and then all these people started rushing down. He was like, is this normal? I was like, yeah, you're in London now, like this is completely normal.
Oh, bless him. That's so cute. Who are you most excited to see when they leave the villa? So obviously it all wraps up very soon, so who are you going to be straight on their WhatsApp, like let's hang out? Faye, 100%. Like she was my like kind of day one, the girl I was closest to. I was close to like Kaz and Lib as well, but Faye was like kind of like my blonde partner in crime. And, I've heard from people that have left the villa since that she was really upset when I left. And people that entered the villa after I left, like she'd spoken really highly about me to them. So that was really nice. And she's also one of those people that have never ventured into the capital for a night out. So oh my God.
I feel like I have to do that with her.
Yes, you need to take her London night out virginity. That's going to be so fun.
I know, I'm really excited. And she does strike me as someone who'd be really fun on a night out. So I'm really excited to do that.
Oh, she's going to love London clubbing and everything. Now that clubbing is back, I went to a gay club the other night and it was just like old times. It was really fun.
Oh no, yeah. I went to the races the weekend with my friends and that was like, it was so good just to have everybody like in the sunshine, drinking. Like,
oh my God, it's amazing, isn't it? And what was it like arriving back in the UK at the airport? Like, was there lots of paparazzi there? Was your family there? Were your friends there? What was the whole experience like?
I actually think so. For me, it was very low key. I wanted it to be very low key. So it was. I kind of just got taken by security and my chaperone from Mallorca to the UK, and then had someone else pick me up at the airport to take me home. My parents are looking after my dog, so they didn't fancy taking her to the airport because she's just too excitable. But I didn't want to really draw a lot of attention to myself because I really didn't know what it would be like. And I think because of COVID travel restrictions, there wasn't that many people at the airport anyway.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. And did you guys have to isolate going in there, like all the COVID precautions and everything?
Yeah, so we had to, when we flew out to Mallorca, you had to be a minimum of 2 weeks in holding before you could go into the villa to be part of the bubble.
Oh my God, I guess it would be a nightmare if everyone in the villa had COVID and they're walking around coughing and stuff.
Yeah, literally, because like you wouldn't be able to have any of the like producers and stuff in the villa. So we had a lot of COVID tests. Do you know what? Sometimes I think the COVID test did more waking up than any kind of coffee I've ever had. So, it was very strict in terms of like the COVID restrictions.
Yeah, of course. And my final question for this kind of keeping it light round is, and I'm going to drop this episode on the day of the finale. So everyone listening is going to be watching the finale tonight, technically. So who do you think is going to win Love Island?
I actually think it would be Chloe and Toby, you know. I think I kind of like, people forget about them sometimes, but actually they've grown so much as characters. Obviously because Toby was an OG, Chloe came in on day one, and like watching them now on TV, I'm like, these are not the same people that I met when we went in. When I was there, you could tell they were just so smitten with each other. They were basically inseparable. I think they're going to win.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see Millie and Liam win just because I love Millie. I think she's amazing. But I think Chloe and Toby, they've got the fan support. Like, they're just funny. They're so funny.
Yeah, like I love Millie as well. And I do think her and Liam's relationship is very genuine. But because of the banter that Chloe and Toby bring, like I just think they'll get the popularity vote.
Yeah, honestly, them sharing that spaghetti like Lady and the Tramp, I was like, this is the kind of relationship that I want. I just want something that is just like funny all the time, you know?
Yeah, watching them with the baby as well, like that was really funny. Like so the way Chloe reacted when Toby was like skipping down the drive onto his golfing trip, like she was just raging, and that's so like that had me in tears. It was so funny.
Oh my God, yeah, they are amazing TV. So that is all of our speed date question rounds. And in the middle of this podcast, we usually, because it did start out originally as a dating podcast where everyone would share their funniest and tragic dating stories, and it's kind of evolved into, you know, we explore some more issues and stuff. But I do love this segment. So I'm wondering, what is your funniest or your most tragic dating story? You can have a couple, you can have one, like just sift through and give me the best you've got.
I'm trying to think now because I feel like all of my dating endeavors are very tragic.
Oh my God.
I do remember like one particular date, this guy had taken me to Shoreditch. Yeah. Like, I think it was like Brick Lane, all of the restaurants down there.
The Indian restaurants? What is it called? The Indian Mile or something? Yeah.
He took me to one of those Indian restaurants, which we all know is never first date food, right? That's more like comfortable relationship food because you don't care that each other smell after you've been eating like really garlicky naan bread and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you're on the toilet afterwards. Like, you're not going to go back for a one night stand and then be like, I have to use your toilet like 10 times in a row.
So yeah, that was new for me.
Oh my God.
And I'm one of those people, I cannot share my food for the life of me. Like, especially when it's not really sharing food, like curry's not really sharing food to me.
It's not.
And I remember like sitting across the table from him. It was like a blind date. I think I took one for the team and one of his friends fancied one of my friends. So I thought I would just be a good wing woman.
Yeah, love this.
And he was basically like eating off my plate. But mixing all of the food, like, so my food was mixed with his food, and it was just like a really big mess. It was like watching Feeding Time at the zoo. So I didn't eat any of my food. And I tried to be really polite after and be like, look, I'm going to go home now. And I tried every excuse under the sun to leave because there was no window in the bathroom. I would never do that. But like, there was no other way of like me getting out of this situation. Somehow I ended up in his flat.
Good.
And he was a little bit, oh yeah, I know. He was a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
And he was playing music to me as if I'd never heard any like other genres of music before.
Oh my God.
So he was like, oh, you bet you're too young to know this. And I was like, what? Like, you're literally like 5 years older than me. I don't know why you're thinking like it was really bad.
This is like when people show you a band and they're like, it's a little band, you may not have heard of them. They're just called the Arctic Monkeys. And you're like, oh, wow.
Oh, I'm really glad you showed me this. Like, I never would have known.
Yeah.
And like, it was like one of those. And then he was trying to like, I think at one point he was trying to get me to give him a massage. I was like sat on the end of his sofa with my coat and my shoes on, right next to my handbag. Like, my bag is in my hands. Like, I'm going to do the next runner I physically can. And he was like trying to get me to give him a massage. And then he was like trying to convince me to stay over. And he had a very typical boys flat. Like, it was disgusting.
Oh God, did it have New York pictures on the wall?
I think he had New York bedding. I'm not going to lie.
Sharon, no.
Yeah, no. It was like everything was giving me the ick in this flat. And I was looking around. I was like, please get me out.
Oh my God.
And then he went to the toilet and I ran out the flat. And
no,
then,
you didn't.
I ran out the flat, and what was even more awkward is I ran the wrong way to the tube station, so I had to run back the opposite way back past his flat.
He's popping his head out the door like, hello.
Yeah, I think he saw me like out of his window running back the opposite direction. And and then he saw me on the tube the week after, so I had to get off the tube 4 stops too early.
Oh my God. That's the thing with London. There's 9 million people here, but sometimes you always run into a person that you don't want to see.
Yeah, I think we worked near each other, so that was pretty tragic for me. Like, I saw him, he saw me, and I'd like kind of semi-ghosted him, so I was like, oh no. So I'd like run off the tube 4 stops too early, and I gave it a couple of more tubes that went by before I got back on another one.
I like how you said semi-ghosted when you literally physically ran away from him. Like, you 100% ghosted him. Oh my God.
Oh no, I feel bad because I don't like. No, he did message me being like, "Oh, I hope you get home safe." And I went, "Yeah, I'm just really tired." So he responded to that, but this is after I ran away from his, like, literally 10 minutes after I ran out of his flat.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was probably my most tragic story, and my friends still find it funny to this day that I'm like having to run away from fully grown men.
I love that. It's such a vibe.
Do you know what? It was even worse. I didn't even get any of my food because it was just like, I don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah, that's the thing when people try to share food. They're like, oh, we can just, share. And I'm just like, no, you order what you want. I'm ordering what I want. I don't want yours. Like, if you want what I'm ordering. No,
literally. And if I'm paying for half, if I'm paying for my half, then I deserve to eat the food that I'm paying for.
Oh my God. I'm imagining this like pig in a trough type situation, just like eating at really high speeds.
That's exactly what it looked like. And they pretty much turned around to me and said, oh, you're too posh for me. And I was like, what? Because I could eat with it getting it all over me.
Oh my
and the
God.
table. I was like, oh no. I just remember looking at it and being like, oh, this is a very strange date.
Oh God.
I was like, I hope my friend really likes the other guy because this is too much for one person to deal with.
Oh my God. I love that story. That is a classic Mads World story. We have so many dating stories on this podcast, and this is literally the epitome of what we love on here. So thank you so much for sharing that one. So I thought we could have a bit of a discussion about a few more interesting topics, because you were a really great feminist role model in the villa, and there were times in the villa when other contestants were intimidated by your career goals and your ambition and your drive for success. And I just wanted to talk to you about, like, why do you think this is?
Well, I mean, it's something I've experienced pretty much before entering the villa anyway, so it wasn't completely new to me. But I think people were intimidated mainly because it was kind of a bit of an insecurity on their own behalf. Or the men that were in the villa at the time were very traditional. And when I say traditional, they assume that they are the breadwinner role and don't know how to function differently, don't understand that it can be different. and don't understand that just because I have the career that I have doesn't make me any different as a person or a partner.
Absolutely. And do you think women are expected to present themselves in a certain way to attract a partner?
I think so, yeah. I think, I've experienced it before as well, where you kind of put yourself into a smaller box or dumb yourself down in a kind of way to massage their ego essentially and make them feel better. In relationships I've had, they need me to need them. And that's why they've never really worked, because I don't need them.
I definitely have felt certain pressures to flatten myself sometimes, which I try not to adhere to. I mean, there's so many men out there that say things like, I love ambitious women, I love someone who's driven, but when that's actually put in front of them, they can be intimidated or put off. And it's kind of this confusing dynamic where I feel like men are wanting this, ambitious woman that's really career driven and stuff. But then at the same time, when they're presented with that, they are somewhat turned off. And it's sort of like where, you have to try and be as authentic as you can as a woman in that situation. But, if we're presenting ourselves in a certain way to attract men, like it's very confusing sometimes.
I think it's one of those things that having a strong, ambitious woman sounds really good on paper.
Yeah.
Whereas when you actually meet that person and you realize, I'm not going to massage your ego. I'm not going to tell you you're funnier than you are. And I'm not going to tell you your dick's bigger than it is. And then so it sounds good on paper. And then when you meet that person, you have that person in your life, you're like, oh, actually, because you're not making me feel as good as I need you to make me feel, it's not working for me.
Yeah. And do you think, in saying this, do you think women are under a lot of pressure to juggle both a family and a career? Because this came up in your time in the villa as well.
Yeah, I think they are. Oh, do you know what? I feel like there's always a lot of pressure that women, not only to juggle it, but to potentially give up a lot of the things they've worked hard for. Yeah. Like in my parents' generation, my mum gave up her career to have the children that she's had, and if that's what my mum wanted to do and she was happy to do that, then all the power to her and all the power to women that want to do that. But it's a choice, and it's not a choice that I want to do. I think parenthood should be 50-50, and if I'm in a position in a relationship with somebody that I feel I'm ready to have children, I want to, I'd expect them to give up as much as I have to give up to be 100%. Able to have this child.
As women get older as well, there's this pressure in these in-between years where half your friends have bought a house and have a baby, and the other half of your friends are at a warehouse rave in Hackney Wick, and you're sort of trying to figure out like this pull between, I want to go out and go to festivals and, have autonomy on my own life and have a disposable income, but then there's part of you that sees other people progressing, and whatever progressing even means, like progressing could mean so many things, but progressing with their relationship and children and housing and everything. And it's just like, there's this awful in-between, not awful, but, in-between pull with so many people having so many options in this generation. So how do you think this changes as women sort of get older?
Do you know what, actually, I think that maybe that doesn't really necessarily apply to me, because I am probably the youngest person in my friendship group, or the second to youngest.
Yeah.
And my friends, only one of us, like in my closest circle, has a baby at this current moment in time.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I don't really feel any need or pressure to move quickly in that sense. But I do find maybe in modern society now, because we do have that autonomy over our bodies and we do have like access to contraception and stuff, I don't think people are in a rush, and I think that should be accepted. Like, some of my friends are in their early 30s and still don't have a baby, and they're okay with that, and they know it's in their plan. But my nan was 40 when she had my dad and uncle. Wow. I think personally I don't necessarily feel that pressure, but I can see why people would think that.
And I think a lot of people as well sort of compare their own age to their parents' age and how old they were when they had kids, but it's a different time. It's 30 years later. I mean, women have a better focus on their career. They have more control over their own lives and, what they want to do to succeed and what they see as success. Like, success for women now isn't just getting married and having a family. Yeah,
no, I agree. And I think one of the conversations that I did have post, like, obviously, so Aaron and I'd called it quits after the whole like family conversation. And I had a conversation with him the next day after I'd like really thought about what was being said to me. And I said to him that I was like, it's easy for you to turn around and say these things to me, but one thing that really frustrated me about the whole situation is it was all about him and how he felt.
Yeah.
And nothing about how I felt and my perspective and my point of view. And it for me, that's why I wasn't really upset the relationship was ending, because I think that can show a lot about somebody. And it strikes me as very selfish in a relationship if you're only caring about your own feelings and your own perspective. And I said to him that, you know, the reason why I'm career driven. So my dad's second generation immigrant, my mum's a first generation immigrant, both grew up with nothing. My mum grew up in a country where poverty is rife and healthcare is inaccessible.
Yeah.
And you know, I've had to work hard. So that my dad worked his ass off really to be able to make sure that my brother and I never have to want for anything, never have to worry about where our next meal comes from. And I said that to him. I was like, you know, we can say the money doesn't matter, but realistically in an adult relationship, when it comes to paying bills and considering children, money does matter.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I never want to meet somebody that I'm really in love with and we decide that we want children, but we can't because we can't financially afford it. Whereas if I've worked hard enough in my career and I've established myself enough that my family will never have to want for anything, whether it's my parents or children or godchildren, that I'm okay with being that person. But I don't think he's seen that from a woman. Like, I don't think he understands that a woman can do that.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that you had that discussion and that more people should have this discussion, because I think if you do meet someone, these are the important discussions that you need to have up front. Because I mean, with half of all marriages ending in divorce now, whatever it is, it's because those foundational sort of elements haven't been discussed early on. And although it's an intense discussion to have, especially at a younger age, it's a really important one.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very fortunate that all of the marriages in my family have never ended in divorce. It's always been like like marriages for life.
Yeah.
And that means I've got that pressure on myself that I want to be able to do the same. So for me, like, I'm going to take marriage very seriously.
Yeah.
Not saying that anyone doesn't, but like, those are conversations that I want to have very early on. So I know that where I stand. And I think that's what people find intimidating.
Yeah.
Because 100%. I know what I want.
Yeah, no, I think that's very wise. And I think it was actually a really progressive and a cool conversation to hear on Love Island, because I don't think those sort of issues have been raised on the show before. So it definitely got people talking, which was great. It's also been recently revealed that you had a really open discussion in the villa about sexuality and dating as a mixed race woman that wasn't aired by ITV. So can you tell me more about this and how this conversation went?
Yeah, of course. So in terms of sexuality, obviously the first challenge that we'd really had was the Horny Devils challenge. And obviously it came to light like my sexual experiences with women. Faye and I are very blunt and upfront. So she turned around to me and said, so does this mean you're bisexual? And I turned around to her and I said, look, if I'm completely honest, I never put a label on it because I don't know. Like, I've had sexual experiences with women, but I've never been in a natural relationship with a woman, and I've never met a woman that I want to be in a relationship with. And I think it's a very confusing grey area, whereas does that make me bisexual? Does it not? Because I've never dated a woman. And I think with bisexuality, it is a very confusing grey area for some people if they don't really know like what the label is. Yeah,
definitely. Especially if you have considered yourself straight your entire life. I guess sort of having those experiences and experimenting it can be really confusing, because you're suddenly like, I don't know if I can identify with bisexual people or the LGBT community because I never have before. And yeah, I can imagine it's a really confusing position to be in. But how do you feel about the conversation not being aired? And do you know the reason why it wasn't aired?
I think it probably wasn't aired just for the simple fact that, 24 hours in an hour period, the conversation wasn't very in depth. I think it was because we're just so blunt and upfront with each other. It was a bit more of like, I don't know. But I also I personally, I don't know why it wasn't aired. I feel like the conversations when it came to race, because I think it was a bit more candid, and it was quite, I don't really know the right word. I think it was very honest in terms of Kaz and my experiences as a Black woman and as a mixed race woman in terms of dating. I think that it can be quite hard to watch and to listen to understand that these things happen. But realistically, I wanted somebody to be able to hear that, because I don't want women that are Black women and women that are mixed race women to feel like they're alone in what happens.
And what have your experiences been like dating as a mixed race woman, both in and out of the villa? I
think, they're both equally as hard, but I do think it was harder in the real world. Obviously in the villa, that being surrounded by a lot of women that are blonde was quite hard. I do think the cast is more diverse this year in terms of like having more races involved, but were the people's types the same? So like all of the girls came in and said, I'm open to meeting anyone, I just need someone that's going to make me laugh. Whereas I feel like the guys were a bit more like kind of narrowed down on what their physical type was.
So in terms of your experiences dating as a mixed race woman out of the villa, how have these sort of been for you?
I think it has been challenging at times. And I do feel like, you know, as an Asian woman, you are hypersexualized in the media. You know, there's always those comments in films as, you know, Asian women being portrayed as escorts, or in pornography, Asian women are fetishized. And, you know, on dating apps, it transfers. And I don't think people realise that. And I don't think they realise what they're saying is harmful or hurtful.
Yeah.
You know, I get a lot of comments saying that I look like certain film characters because they are also Asian, which is really insensitive.
Yeah.
But the guys kind of pass it off as like, well, actually, I fancied this character when I was a teenage boy, so you should take it as a compliment. And it's like, well, it's down to my decision whether I take it as a compliment or not. And if I find it offensive, then it's offensive.
100%. And I had a conversation with a friend recently about sort of where is the line between fetishization and having a type. This is my friend who is a Black woman. She was saying, if you look at your friends and the people you speak to on a regular basis, if you would approach a Black woman or an Asian woman as a friend without a sexual motive, then you can sort of see the differences there. But it is such a fine line to walk. But what would you say, like, is the main differences between fetishization and just simply having a type?
I probably would say the same. I think because from my perspective, my friendships are so diverse. Like, I'm friends with mixed race women, like Black women, white women, like I've got such a broad range. And when it comes to my actual dating, I've noticed that in my own physical type, that there isn't really one. Whereas, like, you know, I've had loads of people turn around to me and be like, I would never date an Asian person because they're usually like an ironing board, whereas you're not, so you're different.
Oh my God.
So that to me is fetishization. But when you watch Asian women in porn, like, they've had certain aspects enhanced, or, you know, like kind of cartoonized, so they look a different way. So things like that, I think it is very different. I think a lot of people are very narrow-minded when it comes to race in dating. I've had a lot of comments to me. I remember dating a guy who made a comment about the color of my nipples and my body parts, saying that he assumed because I was Asian that they wouldn't look as they do. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what are they supposed to look like? Please tell me, because I'd really like to know. Yeah.
And like, did he approach you with those preconceptions as well, which is just not okay, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what was even worse is that I was actually seeing this person, and I'm pretty sure we were like sat in bed when he said these things to me. So I was a bit like, wow, that's so
shocking. And going back to bisexuality, do you think that there is a stigma surrounding people who identify as bisexual?
I think there is. I think, you know, there's always that notion that you're greedy, that you don't know what you want, that you're horny or you're desperate and you'll go for anything that moves. I've pretty much heard it all before. And then, you know, I think as a bisexual woman, it's even worse, because then you're like, oh, well, you know, if you're a bisexual woman, then you'll be up for like X, Y, and Z, and you'll be down to like fulfill a man's fantasy about what a bisexual woman is. And it's like, it's not that at all. Like, if whatever experience I want to experience is down to me and the other people involved.
And I think women are often encouraged to explore their sexuality more because the patriarchy that governs our society deems bisexuality acceptable if it's done in a performative way for like the male gaze. So, and I think this sort of is like especially heightened and highlighted in porn, which is obviously made primarily for men. It sort of normalizes female bisexuality, but then male bisexuality is rendered invisible.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think it must be really hard for bisexual men to kind of identify as that, because I, like, from my experience of any bisexual man that I've ever met, it's, oh, you're just a closet gay, or you're not willing to come out as gay just yet, so you're going to tell people you're bisexual. And it's like, actually, no, that this is how they identify. And that is also perfectly okay. So I do think it is that, like, it's like, oh, you're like trying the waters, or you're not coming out as gay just yet.
And I think that it's quite common for bisexual people to be discriminated against by both the heterosexual world and then gay and lesbian communities. It's sort of this middle ground where they're not on either end of the spectrum. They're sort of in the middle, and I think everyone's sexuality is on a spectrum, whether they identify as a certain sexuality or not. Yeah, it's just so nuanced and it's so different. It's such a different experience for every person.
Yeah, I agree. And I think sexuality is one of those things that's very fluid, and you know, there's nothing wrong with experimenting as long as you're doing it for yourself and you're not hurting anyone else when you're doing it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, that is all of my questions, Sharon, and you have been an absolutely amazing guest. I think you presented yourself so well on Love Island. You definitely raised some important discussions for everyone watching. And I just wanted to know if there's anything else, like a note you wanted to leave it on, or any final words for the podcast?
I honestly think for me, like, you know, the one thing that I've managed to deal with in terms of trolling since coming out is knowing that I've made a lot of women feel represented or feel better about their stance on certain things. So I think, you know, it's made the trolling so insignificant that it's actually made me really happy, and I'm really happy and like proud of myself of how I've managed to come across to other people, and I'm really glad that I've managed to make a lot of people feel better about themselves. Oh,
Sharon, thank you so much. I have this really Australian urge to call you Shazza, and
go for it, 'cause my friends do anyway.
Such an Australian thing. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've been incredible, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with the lovely Sharon Gaffka. Please let me know on my Instagram. It's @madsworld.mp3 if you have any stories or thoughts of your own to share, or get in touch through my website. It's madsworld.co. Love and elbow taps. Peace.